empower Muslim women through AI? Thank you so much for staying back and understand a beautiful couple of days exploring fascinating topics. I was able to come a little earlier today and it's not been a few of the backs of some of your presentations. And really I was quite impressed with the level of scholarship and the engagement and the great questions. And I'm saying that because you're going to ask me great questions shortly, so I'm going to prime you. So I should know that about the Muslim women's passion for scholarship and knowledge. I have some incredible scholars at my own university, at Emmanuel College for sure. I see Professor Scanter over here, and then Professor Reda is somebody I think who's been around for a while. And I hear that I have other Victoria College students, alumni in the house, 1, 2, so we get around. So what I want to do today is share a few bits of information, but the most fun part will be you asking me questions. So how much time do I have for the full session? 4:30. Perfect. Which means I'm going to try and stop because the best part is always when we talk. So I'm going to leave a lot of room for you. And please do not feel that any question you ask is either too silly or too basic or I don't have those feelings. We will just ask because there's always someone else who wants to know the same thing. So let's get started. Of course, we've been hearing so much about AI. It's dominated the space. I was telling a friend just now that I was speaking at the Hayes McCallion Central Library in Mississauga yesterday. I was talking to a bunch of students, and one of the students said, well, AI is taking over the entire world, there will be no jobs for us. This was like a high schooler. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a desperate moment. But I do feel in all the decades that I have studied emerging technology that we're at a really interesting point right now. And I have been a very pro-technology person most of my life, and yet I find myself writing things to the government and other places calling for more guardrails, because I think this technology is like nothing we've seen before. And there is reason to be both excited but also quite concerned with the development. So just as a way of starting, I just give you that AI is not just another technological advance. It is actually a transformative force. And I really feel that that best describes what we are dealing with right now. So we embrace these changes, but we have to consider what is coming next. Because we're at the point where we need to make some really important decisions about where we're going to go with AI. I start now with defining AI, because before 2023, and I will call November as the date, no one really cared. I was in the lab working with my students on LLMs, and I was like, okay, Rhonda's working on some other tech. But then OpenAI launched GPT. And in November 2023, everything changed very quickly. It didn't change from a tech perspective. Those of us who have been building AI, nothing much has changed. But what has changed is that it's come into the public imaginary and into public hands. And now people are seeing where this expansion can come. But I want to separate into 3 categories of AI, right? There's one that you hear a lot about, and that's generative AI, which we call it Gen AI for short. And that includes all the things that we see in terms of focusing on creating and using text, images, video, audio, or code based on statistical modeling and algorithms that basically are saying, if this word came and this next word came, the statistical probability of, Rhonda McEwen is you could probably finish it, right? President, or is the professor, or is there only a certain number of words. You wouldn't say Rhonda McEwen is the man who, has a beard, right? It doesn't fit because it doesn't statistically follow. But so what it's doing, it looks very clever, but it's really just narrowing down a prediction of what might be the next thing coming and be able to complete it based on data sets that tell the AI, here are the things that likely will come into the rest of this sentence, or to the rest of this image will probably be represented by these kinds of things. So it's very specific. on vast quantities of training data. And when I say vast quantities, I was working in telecommunications in the good old days where we had mainframes. And mainframes used to take up this entire room, would be like one mainframe, and it would be hot in there, and you had to take your shoes off outside. You remember. Yeah, anytime you see someone going, it's because they worked in that environment. And I remember when client server came on the scene, and people were like, oh, we don't need these giant mainframes. We could just network a bunch of smaller equipment, and it will be able to perform in some ways faster and better with more storage. That phenomenon we've seen over decades increase until we can carry in our USB stick, right? What used to be the entire storage of a mainframe that would take up this whole room, you can put that in your pocket and walk away. And that's where we are. So large amounts of training data are finally accessible, and that makes something like GenAI possible, because it can mine all this data and come up with better and better predictions. But that's not the only AI you should think about. That's the one we know the most about, because that's all the stuff you're hearing. Gemini, you hear DeepSeek, LLMs that are like ChatGPT and so forth. The next ones are agentic AI. Agentic AI are actually very different to the first, to Gen AI. Agentic AI is another class of AI, but this time they are designed to be autonomous. So whereas Gen AI is dependent on you and me, we are directing through prompts, we keep asking questions or putting in prompts. Agentic AI is designed to make autonomous decisions. So it doesn't need a human driving it. And it's often to achieve very specific tasks with minimal human intervention. So, before you go into sci-fi in your imagination, let me give you a more appropriate example of agentic AI. This would be, this building is attached to maybe a central server coming out of the city, North York, right? So something in municipal ordering, and these two systems talk to each other. But if something fails on one system, it wants to alert the next system. So machine to machine, autonomous pinging, checking, there's not enough power in the system, there are a lot of people in one room here, we need to get more Wi-Fi resources routed to the Gibson ballroom, etc. So these were, you could imagine, great uses for this in hard-to-reach locations like the Arctic, if there are pipelines involved and so forth, if there's submarine cables deep in the floor of the oceans, we're not running down there to check on it all the time. So it's nice to have machines to be able to talk to other machines or to alert humans that something's happening. So these autonomous agentic AI, that's where their roots begin. Nothing quite as sinister as taking over the world, but more or less trying to send information back to humans or to other machines. But as we develop agentic AI, recognize that we have already moved into a phase where humans are not intervening. And often there will be a threshold developed, and they will say up to this amount, the machine may make the decision. If it goes past that, let's check a human to make sure we're doing the right thing. But more or less, the systems are operating on their own. Those systems are not futuristic. They are already existing. And so we're going to come back to these decisions we're about to make, right? The third class I would share with you is general AI. So it's called artificial general AI, or AGI. AGI is not yet developed. It's still in development. But this one, so it's a hypothetical form of AI, and it possesses human-like general cognitive abilities. So the goal for AGI is to create AI, create these machines that would be human-like. So that's going to now we're going further away, right? So we're going from Gen AI, humans in control more or less, agentic AI, machines have some of their own control, to this one, AGI, where machines actually have cognitive or so-called cognitive capacities similar to a human. And that's all the talk of neural networks and so forth, that's where that's coming. So these machines would be capable of understanding, learning on their own, applying intelligence to any intellectual task. So not like agentic AI specific tasks. AGI is general purpose. And that's a whole other ballgame. So before you run and take all your money out of your bag and put it under your bed tonight because you're concerned, this one is still not here. So again, we have some decisions to make. Do we want to get here? And what would be the implications of that? Okay. Hopefully, we're not scared yet, because I told you we're in November of 2025. We still have time. Let's talk about 3 cases, just to give you some examples of where we see AI crop up. The first is AI in healthcare, and all of the literature talks about how AI can transform personalized care. So the first is in improved diagnostics through our AI algorithms. So we know when we go to our family doctor or our gynecologist or to whoever our specialist is, that they need data. In the traditional way for diagnostics, the doctor would ask you many questions. How are you feeling? On a scale of 1 to 10, where's your pain? Anything change in your life, in your habits since I last saw you? So what's the doctor doing? Gathering data. And that was kind of a human-to-human interaction kind of thing. Of course, when the doctor has no time, they cut those questions really fast, right? Okay, anything you need to tell me, yes or no? Are you feeling good, yes or no? What's the problem, yes or no? Let's go. Many practitioners take blood work. They check your heart rate in women's health. They do a lot of checking on our gynecological and other systems. And diagnostics is really came down to, in the past, the doctor having the experience and the knowledge and maybe in the patient set to make those decisions. So I'll tell you a funny, not so funny, kind of funny story. So I had this area of my skin, and my head was a rash, and it would come and go, and sometimes it was itchy, sometimes it was painful. And I went to my GP here, and my GP here, a wonderful, wonderful woman, like years and years of experience. She just retired, that's to tell you she was around a while. But she couldn't figure out what this was. She tried things, she Googled it, we looked at the pictures, she'd ask me all the questions, we did blood work, nothing. I keep coming back with the same problem. It's not shingles, it's not this, it's not that. Are you stressed? I'm like, I'm a university professor, of course I'm stressed. That's not a normal situation. So I'm like, that's no different than I was last year. Anyway, eventually she said, you know what, I'm going to send you to Women's College Hospital. There's a specialist there who looks after skin disorders. But the difference is that he sees more than I can see in my practice, right? She's a white woman in Toronto. She's seeing whoever she sees. He said in Women's College, he sees more different cases, so go see him. Within 2 minutes of meeting him, he had one look at my thing and he said, yeah, I know what that is. And I said, tell me, Doc, is it that? He's like, it's so easy. It's such a simple treatment. One ointment, you're going to be done. So I said, well, how come it's been years of trying to battle this? And he said, because we don't see enough darker pigmented skin with this particular issue. And he said, and what I want you to do, if you're okay with it, is come back on Saturday morning, really early, because I want my next round of students to see you and to see this, so that we can train the next group to make better diagnostic calls. And so I did it. Of course, I didn't want to get up on Saturday morning, but in the interest of good diagnosis for everyone else, I did it. And in a team of students, there was one woman who was South Asian, and he asked all of them, anybody want to ask her the questions and see if you can figure it out? And she took one look and she gave it. And she said, that's what it looks like on dark skin. It's not pink and raised. All the descriptions were not accurate because of the different pigmented skin. So why am I telling you this whole long story? This is where many believe AI can support in diagnostics. Because the AIs would be able to go into databases that are networked across a much broader spectrum. You could prompt, say, well, my patient is, from the Caribbean, has darker skin, blah, blah, blah. You can list it. Here are the symptoms. And AI can actually then hunt down into all the databases. Here are some probable examples with images, video, right? And you can keep asking it more questions and it can keep drilling down. So one of the real hopes in healthcare is that this will allow doctors to do earlier detection, to make much better predictions of what they think is happening, and send people, especially women. And women's health is, not. It's really not. I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about menopause, and they were saying all these new symptoms that everybody's talking about with menopause. They're like, about 10 years ago, no one talked about these particular symptoms associated with menopause. And they were like, few things are the problems here. One, women didn't live long enough past menopause for centuries, right? Past childbearing years, they didn't survive it for the database to be compiled. When the data was available, no one was taking it down. No one took their symptoms seriously. Doctors would say, you're just, overwrought. Remember, back in the 50s or whatever? You need to have a Valium and go lie down. This is why it was called Mother's Little Helper. Because basically this was the answer to women's health. Was, you're making it up, this can't be real. And now that finally we have women researchers and so forth, we're finally getting some data that is useful for the next generations. So diagnostics is one area where we see some potential for AI. In healthcare, another one would be personalized treatment plans. So I'm sure many of you have gone to the doctor and then they give you a treatment plan. Usually they're scripted because it's what the majority of people need. But it often doesn't account for specifics in your life. It wouldn't account for the fact that there are times where women are fasting. It's not in the personalized treatment plan, right? They'll just go like, well, stop fasting, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe that's not what I want to do. It doesn't really talk about what happens if you are breastfeeding, if your hormones are changing, and so forth. So this ability to personalize your treatment is a real hope that AI can help here, because what it can do is consider your lifestyle along with the other data and make a plan that increases the likelihood that you will stick to it. Versus taking it and going, well, my grandmother was notorious, God rest her soul. She would say, the doctor gave me this prescription, but I don't like it. So I'm going to take half today, and like in another week I'll take a bit more. You're laughing because you all know maybe some of this is true. But this is because it wasn't convenient. She also didn't always have the money to get the medication. So there's no point putting a treatment plan that says she needs to have 100 days straight. She's like, I can do the first 30 days and then I may not have the money, so I'll have to wait, right? Maybe you make a plan that suits the lifestyle and the income and the ability of the patient. Another point in healthcare is enhanced monitoring and care management. And this is where I talked about, this is where agentic AI comes in a little bit, right? The idea that you don't always need a human to come, you can have the machines keep track of things on a much more detailed level. So the nurses, when their shifts are changing and they're not available, somebody's got the eye off the ball. This is where the machines can keep their eye on the ball and measure and make adjustments. So the machine can't do everything, but it can notice that there's a change in the heart rate. I'm going to up the medication by this time. I'll send an alert to the nursing station, but I'm going to, in the meantime, do something to support this patient until a human being can get here. So that's one of the areas we're looking at. So that's healthcare, and that all sounds good. Another place where there's some good news and positive views, and I research in this area of learning science, is AI and education. How do we enhance the learning experience? So adaptive learning technologies, this is AI adaptive learning, which basically says you can, and how many of you were ever teachers or are teachers? Yeah, so you always have teachers in your crowd here. You have that class. Let's be generous and say you have 30 kids. And in that 30, and the statistics are leading this way, about a quarter of them have learning disabilities or neurodiversities or some specialized needs. Then you have about 10%, I'm being generous, 5 to 10% who are excelling in the class already. They came in all with all the good stuff and they're crushing it. Then you have everybody else, all the rest of us in the class. And one teacher is meant to tailor the learning experience for every child in that 30-person classroom. Like, it's literally not a possible dream. It's not possible. So what would happen traditionally, the kids who are further ahead, where everybody says, give them more challenging work. When are you going to do that? Yeah, it's a great idea. You're like, yes, I'd love to. Well, who's sitting down to write the plan for that group? You try to give them a bit more, but they keep finishing it, right? Then you have those that need a lot of your time and attention. I don't know, how do you tailor the material for this child? And it's not like you can even say, for all my kids with ADHD. They're all different. So this is the idea that you could create a personalized experience very quickly using AI. And this would be the teacher who is the mastermind of the subject and of this age group, leading the AI to create the personalized plan. The cool thing is too, you can tailor it. You can say, well, I tried this with Rhonda, didn't work. You go back to the AI and you adjust it. You say that, blah, 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 not like that. Then they say, okay, try this instead. Literally, you could come up with plans, and I sat with a teacher and we tried it. You could do it all within an hour for 30 students. You could create those plans. Now, executing the plan is a whole other story. You need some robots in that room. But you could at least create a plan. You could also take IEPs or any individualized educational plan, and you could actually input it, as long as it's not going right out into the internet. Let's get to privacy and security events. And it would tell you how you could tailor the next class to meet that particular set of exceptionalities in an hour, right? Think of what a dream that is for instruction. I'm going to, in a second, tell you, we're going to do a little tiny bit of a video from Sal Khan from Khan Academy. But this idea of an AI tutoring, a personalized tutor for every one of your 30 students. If you take that, explode it into the college and university sector. If I used to teach classes of 600 when I first started as a professor. 600, and people would come up to me later and say, can you write a reference for me? I'm like, who are you? I'd love to know you, but I don't. I'd say, only if you come to office hours. I can't even pretend to know you in this class. But what if every student could have a personalized tutor? So I'm seeing this idea with you. We're going to listen to Sal Khan. This is from 2023. Since then, Khan Academy has launched Conmigo, which is their AI personalized tutor. And it is working. But we're going to listen to him, and I'm going to do it, and my wizard here is going to move me to the right part of the slide, because I don't want you to listen to the whole thing. So here we go.
And the way we're going to do that is by giving every student on the planet an artificially intelligent but amazing personal tutor. And we're going to give every teacher on the planet an amazing artificially intelligent teaching assistant. And just to appreciate how big of a deal it would be to give everyone a personal tutor, I show you this clip from Benjamin Bloom's 1984 2 Sigma study, where he called it the 2 Sigma problem. The 2 Sigma comes from 2 standard deviations, sigma is symbol for standard deviation. And he had good data that showed that, look, a normal distribution, that's the one that you see in the traditional bell curve right in the middle, that's how the world kind of sorts itself out. That if you were to give personal one-to-one tutoring for students, then you can actually get a distribution that looks like that right. It says tutorial one-to-one with the asterisk, like that right distribution, a 2 standard deviation improvement. Just to put that in plain language, that could take your average student and turn them into an exceptional student. It can take your below average student and turn them into an above average student. Now the reason why he framed it as a problem was he said, well, this is all good, but how do you actually scale group instruction this way? How do you actually give it to everyone in an economic way? What I'm about to show you is, I think, the first moves towards doing that. Obviously, we've been trying to approximate it in some way at Khan Academy for over a decade now, but I think we're at the cusp of accelerating it dramatically. I'm going to show you the early stages of what RAI, which we call Khan-Migo, what it can now do, and maybe a little bit of where it is actually going. So this right over here is a traditional exercise that you or many of your children might have seen on Khan Academy. But what's new is that little bot thing at the right. And we'll start by seeing one of the very important safeguards, which is the conversation is recorded and viewable by your teacher. It's moderated actually by a second AI. And it also does not tell you the answer. It is not a cheating tool. Notice, when the student says, tell me the answer, it says, I'm your tutor, what do you think is the next step for solving the problem? Now, if the student makes a mistake, and this will surprise people who think large language models are not good at mathematics, notice not only does it notice the mistake, it asks the student to explain their reasoning, but it's actually doing what I would say not just even an average tutor would do, but an excellent tutor would do. It's able to divine what is probably the misconception in that student's mind, that they probably didn't use the distributive properly. Remember, we need to distribute the -2 to both the 9 and the 2m inside of the parentheses. This to me is a very, very, very big deal, and it's not just in math. This is a computer programming exercise on Khan Academy where the student needs to make the clouds part. And so we can see the student starts defining a variable, left x minus minus. It only made the left cloud part, but then they can ask the Khan-Migo, what's going on? Why is only the left cloud moving? And it understands the code. It knows all the context of what the student is doing, and it understands that those ellipses are there to draw clouds, which I think is kind of mind-blowing. And it says, to make the right cloud move as well, try adding a line of code inside the draw function that increments the right x variable by 1 pixel in each frame. Now, this one is maybe even more amazing because we have a lot of math teachers. We've all been trying to teach the world to code, but there aren't a lot of computing teachers out there. And what you just saw, even when I'm tutoring my kids when they're learning to code, I can't help them this well, this fast. Sizes and understand, why do I need to learn this? And it asks Socratically, well, what do you care about?
Great. So I'm going to stop because it's really good and you can watch the whole thing. The third example is a literature one. And the student is analyzing a text and struggling a little bit, and then eventually the student asks a question of the tutor, and the tutor doesn't give the answer. This is different to a search engine. The tutor says, tell me what you thought about that. And then the student said, well, I thought this. And he's like, you're on the right track. What about have you considered this as well? And then they have an exchange. And at the end, it's all typing. At the end, the student goes, thank you so much for your help. And that, for me, was the most mind-blowing thing in all the things. That the student thanked the AI for being helpful. So for the student, the AI is not just a machine. You don't thank Google for finding your search. But it was in a dialogue with the student, understanding the student was feeling heard and understood. It was getting individual attention, and then here we go. So to me, that was a bit mind-blowing. This idea, think of how we could scale education in this way, where the teacher has TAs, and TAs who maybe don't talk back, although I'm pretty sure the agentic AI will. But this could be a really interesting model as we go forward. So the last one, and I'll go through this quickly, is in finance, in financial services sector. We've seen quite a lot of AI come in here. One is in automated trading systems. If you have been following, if you watch any live TV at all for any reason, lots of people all the ads are coming up now You don't need to go to your bank. We'll work with you ourselves. It's cheap, it's free. We'll do all your trading for you. Trading is the easiest thing for an AI. Literally, it's swimming in the data and you're asking it to make choices based on what you want and it's going to deliver that, right? So it is one area. So high frequency trading, you can't keep your eye on it, the machine can. It's really good at this. Fraud detection is another one with machine learning. So these algorithms are able to identify fraudulent activities just by looking at your regular transactions. I was traveling, I went to South America about a month ago. I was coming back. All my friends chose not to go there. They wanted a direct flight with Air Canada, but I needed to get back for a certain date. So I had to do a stop in Miami. So I'm in Miami, I'm in the airport, I'm just gonna get something to eat. Well, the bank who I shall not name right now, that is Canadian, decided that that was just one too many stops for me. You left Toronto, you went to South America, I tried to deal with you, now you're in the US, somebody sold this card, no food for you. So literally, that was it. Right, you know, he's calling back names. It wasn't even TD, it was another one. So you're all the same. I'm on the phone, I'm watching my phone, I'm hungry, like the whole thing's true. They would not budge. I literally had to board that flight. Nothing to eat. I talked to a human, and they still wouldn't do it. So, the human error is real, right? The AI would have probably checked my flights.
That's right.
And seen that it was already, it's legit, it's information available. It knows that I had to stop in Miami. It knows how long I was going to be in Miami. It knows exactly where I would be in Miami because I'm catching a flight. And it would say, oh, she's getting a transaction at the airport. Her flight landed here, takes off here. That makes sense. So we get it. So right now we use a heavy blanket for fraud. We just cut everything out. This would be nuanced. It would get to understand my patterns and know whether this is fraudulent or not. So the idea of, I love that they said a proactive approach enhances this. It sounds nice. But also I sent a very nasty email after I got back. Well, you don't leave me hungry anywhere. Okay, I get hungry. So you get happier customers. I was really upset because I spoke to 2 different people who would not budge. I was trying to spend $10, and they wouldn't budge. So the other one is, this last one is of personalized financial advice, similar to the tutoring, right? This would be an advisor who would actually understand that you are single, that you just bought a house, that you're trying to save for a house, that you have your student loan still, whatever, and be able to tailor that advice very quickly given your profiles and what you can submit. Not just a generic profile, but your profile. So this is one that is really starting to take up, and I don't know how many of you know this, you probably will know this. But women, so women between the ages of 55 and 85 are the financial, they run the finances, not just of the household, but of their children's households if they are involved. It's true. They are the investment knowledge brokers. And women, very few of them actually are going to get this kind of advice if they walk into the bank. Right? So these are able to do it from your own home and get into a situation where you are understood, your parameters are understood. Plus you're probably taking care of parents who are aging as well. So all that sounds great. So then I can say, what are some of the future of work? Where does employment pathways come in AI? How do we deal with this? Because while I just showed you all the good news, there's some not good news too. So one, let's start with the good stuff though. Skills development. There are lots of training programs popping up. I know you, my friend here just finished a course in AI. But there are lots that are trying to equip individuals with the skills that we need. This is different. This isn't quite like digital literacy, like when the internet came up. This is another level of literacy that's required. And so either taking courses or delivering courses. are two different new career paths that are kind of starting to come up. People often ask me after I say that, like what? So here are a list of different things that could be of interest. You will notice that these are a mix of not just technical skills, but also what we call soft skills or human-centered abilities. So yes, some technical skills, but analytical skills are really important. And I do find humanities and social science students are better on the analytical pieces here. Human and ethical skills, understanding bias, fairness, societal impacts. The AIs don't know any of that. Somebody has to train the systems to think about these things. Emerging areas, so policy, lots of work in policy. For all the federal government jobs that will be lost in the next couple of years based on the new budget, there are lots of jobs coming in this. How to put the guardrails up, what are the policies that we have to put in place, how do we interpret what we're seeing. And as I said, soft skills, teamwork, integrity, and teamwork including machines as a co-team member. You laugh, but the ability to be good at communicating with machines is a new skill, right? And for all of you that scream at your GPS in the car, we have some work to do. Okay, so new career opportunities, for sure diverse roles in tech industries. Here are a bunch of them. I didn't write of them all, I just wrote the ones I remembered. But in different fields, here are some roles that are now coming to the top. And the last one, of course, is this one, jobs that do not yet exist. There's so many jobs. Every time we put up the slide, another one comes up. So students we training in a 3 or 4 year degree or diploma, by the time they graduate, there are new jobs that are up. So we have to train skills in a very broad, we always said that, we train for jobs of the future. Literally we're training for jobs that are coming up in 4 years. That's where we are. But there are lots here. If you are already in a field and you think you need to upskill and reskill, maybe take a minute and think about what you might want to do next and what you need but you don't have. Because there are jobs available. It's not going to be all machines. No. And now I get to the darker side. There are opportunities, as I just said, but for who and under what conditions, right? For sure, we know that AI is like all machine and all algorithms, good at taking bias and multiplying it, right? Because the data sets that have been created are the ones that they're using. Large language models like GenAI use internet as their source often. The internet is a dark and horrible place for most people. There are many, many inaccuracies, intrinsic systemic bias coded right into the data itself, right? I was doing a project on different versions of English. So how many of you in this room are from a country originally? I'm not including Canada in this. If you're here, I get that there's other languages here too, but from a non-Canadian country where there is English spoken, but it's not the exact English of Canadian English. Right. So what my language and linguistics professors, friends tell me, I did research with them, is that 80% of the English spoken in the world is spoken in countries where it's not the English spoken in the West. It's a different form of English. And it's easy for us to think about, there are different languages. But if I ask you, is there one version of Hindu? No. In no country is there one version. Italy has 26 versions of Italian spoken, right? French is the same, depending on where you are in the country, you speak a different version. English is exactly the same, but we don't treat it that way. Right? We are taught in school that we need to learn British, Australian, New Zealand, US, or Canadian English. That's real English, and what we have is like some other thing. So the linguistics people say, actually those are legitimate forms of English. They have syntax, they have rules, they have vocabulary that is understood by the community, And if we should actually train the LLMs, because at first we would put a question in, and we use Trinidadian Creole as the English variety. We put it in, and the language model would fix it. It'd be like, oh, I think I know what you're asking, but you're just asking in very broken English. Let me fix you by giving you the better answer. So maybe we'll learn how to speak properly, right? And what we did is in 36 pieces of code, we taught the language model how to respond in the same version as the question was asked. So it can be done. We can train the LLMs to do better things, but the data is required. So I talked about that already. Importance of diverse teams. This is something we've been saying in computer science since computer science began. If we have more diverse teams, we will be better. But we're not. I will say that this one I disagree with. Like, put more left-handers in the team, it will be able to develop for left-handers. Put some South Asian women in, it'll be more South Asian women. Like, it doesn't happen. Because often you're the only person on the team anyway. And they're going to say, well, it's not enough of the client base will buy that, so we're going to still do it the other way. It's good, but it's not enough. Strategies, they always say, you need to continuously audit the system. It's not done and you launch it and it's off. These systems, this is why machine learning holds promise, because it can learn, but you have to give it something to learn from. So, I think, honestly, this is my marginalized language communities, dominant data and frameworks. That's the study I told you about, the Trinidadian English one. So let me end with this one, and then let's open for questions. How do we empower Muslim women through AI? Are there anything specific? Oops, didn't want me to talk to you about that. So access to technology for skills development. This is a great group that you have here. Wouldn't it be amazing if we built skill development right into the group, through this platform? Give Muslim women a place where they don't feel like in the computer science classroom, either that they're like some weirdo, some geek, right? That they don't have to work with some very annoying students. I see this among my own students all the time. I was a woman in engineering. I knew what it felt like. You know, you're there, you're getting the same thing, but you're not feeling like you could speak up in the same way, you're not feeling heard in the same way, otherwise you're a very odd person. But we can create specific programs, and we know that people thrive, especially if they're in group communities. What about opportunities for entrepreneurship? This is something that I've been trying to push. There are a lot of Muslim women entrepreneurs, a lot. Right? How do we reach them and introduce these AI tools to make them more successful in their own entrepreneurial journey? And culturally responsive AI solutions. You can build those. You know what they should be. You've engaged in systems that don't work well. You can actually be the ones to come up with them. So I think that there's lots of possibility, because I do believe that we can have culturally responsible innovation in AI. We're not anywhere close to developing it, but I think we can. So I'm going to stop, and then we're going to do questions. Yes? Do you need microphone to come around, or yes?
First, can we just please applaud?
Right here.
And then hi, my name is Amani. I'm going to look at my computer because I was writing as you were talking. So much stuff and very interesting. Thank you, by the way. I was actually studying over the weekend because I'm in a master's program, and I was reading a paper about an Austrian philosopher, and he was actually discussing the gap between production and ideology, the machine and the body, and production and our actual human needs. And he was basically talking about how when these two dualities meet, then it's more likely for the technology that we produce. There's always probabilities in everything to be more, malevolent rather than actually enhancing a human quality of life. And we already see this today with rapid technology, stalled policy, negative social and health outcomes, My question is AI actually better at the things that have been listed, not by virtue of being AI, but by virtue of the current overworking and underpaid capitalist structure? And is this a profitable way to sidestep revolution and real change? And how do we ensure that the huge profit margins don't continue to accumulate in the top 1%, rather than circling back around to the working class with things like universal basic income, shorter working weeks? Like, I work in retail to help fund my education, and when they put in the self-checkout, the cashiers never got a raise.
Yeah, that's right. So go back to my example of the classroom. Let's go right there. So we can hire more teachers, more support teachers, more, we can get more people into the labor force to do that. For me, the answer is not take away that person, because the AI is not going to help when that same student is having a moment and needs a physical human being to hold their hand or to take them outside or go for a walk with them. So for me, it's not a zero sum. It's not going to replace, it can't, right? And even if it's a robot, it's not going to be able to really engage in that way. But I think I'll challenge us to think about it from a different angle. So we have the opportunity to draw those lines. How far does this go? Where do we want to make sure that there are always places where humans are in control of that? Do we want to get all the way to AGI? I think that's a problem. And I'm writing about that, right? I think that's a real problem. And it will be a huge loss. I think it will concentrate wealth even more firmly than we've seen in the past, right? Because and I've been writing about the new digital divide, that, giving everybody an AI won't solve that either, right? Just as we thought one laptop per child was going to fix the fact that people can't eat, right? So these are issues that run alongside this, and it will only get worse if we allow it to get worse. I hope that more or less catch, but I agree 100%. I see a hand up in the back.
Yeah, I want to ask you, how would you control AI going rogue?
Yeah, so AI already goes rogue. I have a car that has a lot of AI in it, and I was very happy with that old car, let me tell you right now. But it was a lease, I had to give it up, and here's this new car. I switch off all the things. I don't want lane correction, I don't want you to tell me how to drive the car. And half the time the car can't see me. It's always like, you are not paying attention, or I'm like, I'm fully looking ahead, my friend. And my eyes are on the road. I don't know why it does not recognize me. I'm sure that's something to do with the way it's designed. But we have to put guardrails up. All of that AI policy work I'm talking about. I wrote an article to the Hill Times in, maybe it was last year, maybe it was this year, I can't remember. But it was called, basically it's time to put in some controls. And lots of AI developers are saying the same thing. They're like, this can't keep developing along the same way.
Already it's being abused.
Already it's being abused. The EU have their standards. The EU AI Act was launched last year. And in the AI Act, they indicated categories of problems, like this kind of AI is fine, leave it alone. This, if it's used for this, that's a problem. This one is the worst, don't let that happen. Where do you think they classify deepfakes? In the no problem.
No.
So it's been classified as potentially entertainment, potentially this, and yet we see how a whole election can swing off of people can't tell if this image is true or not. There's no way to know. It's a well-done deepfake. And so even in the way that we're designing our policy and our classifications, it's not strong enough. But here's the problem we actually have. If we do it tight, if we go strong, and other parts of the world don't, and they're not going to, all the evidence is there. AI adoption in the global south and in Asia is people generally feel that it's going to be a good thing. They don't have as many ethical concerns. We have ethical concerns, they don't. Technology is developing anyway. So what's the big problem? Businesses here feel that they're going to lose out if they don't keep up. because it's going to come in.
Hello, my name is Rhonda. I'm an educator. I've had these conversations with my students about ethical versus non-ethical uses of AI, and having policies around that is great. But in the world that we live in today, the own governments that create these policies are the same governments that are actually unethically using AI. So, for instance, in conflicts, it's completely changed the way of warfare or surveillance. So, how can we trust the very organizations and governments that are creating these policies to use AI ethically and having us also be aware of? There are so many things that we're not aware of that it's being used in current day.
So I need you or your students, I need you or your whoever to become the people who go in to develop the policies. Government is not like a big amorphous something. It's the people. We are the government, technically. Really? And we don't always identify with the government, but when we don't step up into public service life, others do. And then we're asked to vote on the best of the worst options. Enough women in particular, we don't like to go into these jobs, then we leave it for other people to develop. We have to go up in there. We have to be part of the answer, not part of the dissenting majority. And so I really have been pushing young women in particular to get into these fields, because that's the only way we can shape what's coming.
Hello everyone, my name is Hiba. I'm a social worker from Windsor, Ontario, and I feel like there's a lot of gaps right now with the AI because I'm passionate in mental health and wellness, and I feel like there's a lot of lack of evidence-based practice and best practice. So where is the data coming from? Is there ethics behind the AI? So coming back to the question of is AI going to support us, or are we going to support AI back and forth? So yeah, so that's my question's back to looking at the validity of the data for AI.
Right now, and I'm not talking about next year, but for now, the humans are still in control of that data, really, right? So it comes down to being very good at choosing the data sets, choosing which participants will be there, cleaning the data. Data cleaning is boring and very needed. And in fact, AI is very good at cleaning data. AI in itself is not nefarious. We are the ones who are causing problems with the data sets. We have to ask for data transparency, right? All systems, as far as I'm concerned, if there's an AI that cannot tell you where it got its data from, it should not be allowed. That's a policy. Literally right now, the government could say, if your AI cannot back, we call it breadcrumb trail, right? If it can't backwards get to the answer, you shouldn't be giving out that data. In my lab, we've been studying different LLMs for years. When DeepSeek came out, this is the Chinese solution, all the West freaked out. Oh my gosh, the Chinese again, they're always up to no good, they're sneaking. DeepSeek can tell you where it got its data. Because that was a requirement by the Chinese government. If they can do it, all the rest can do it. They're choosing not to do it, right? So we need to insist on things like data transparency, so we will believe or not believe based on what we see. Right now it's a black box for us. Why should I believe that? On mental health, I would say there's a lot of really good research happening, especially within the hospital systems. They are doing fantastic data. I've been talking to a colleague at CAMH, just incredible work coming out of the system. But we have to make sure those data sets are, and we have to keep checking on them. It's not like a one and done situation. It has to be continuously assessed to make sure that we're taking out anything that's problematic. I see a hand over here. Okay, go ahead.
Going by
Thank you. I have a quick question. So recently, Zoom has updated their platform, and it allows you to have an AI-generated note email.
Yes.
My board has freaked out over that. They are so confused. We are so confused on whether it's a good tool to use. Is it safe because of confidentiality?
Right.
Can we use it during board meetings to take notes for us? Because it's a laborsome activity to record and rewatch and keep notes. So it apparently does an excellent job in summarizing notes and keeping the gossip on the side. No, honestly, it doesn't report the gossip.
That's true.
I've tested it out. So, is it safe for us to use in our sector, as part of our everyday conversations?
So what we need to do is, you need to get a system and put it in-house. So we need to get it off the cloud. This is the actual problem. The data, if we use it free, cheap versions, they're out there. You're adding your data to the general data set. Any organization using AI should have their own inside the firewall versions, and you can do it. You can purchase it. It's inside, you keep your data inside. We have data policy rules about going outside of the firewall. It actually stops. You might ask a question and it says, sorry, you can't ask that. Or you'll put in somebody's social security number mistake and it says that cannot go outside of our walls. But that requires an investment in making sure that we control the movement of the data inside and keep it inside the firewalls. So it's an architecture problem, really, the data architecture problem. So I think I have time for, I was watching all my science come up. I know my science people are taking notes too, which is cute.
That's really good.
Yes.
So I guess maybe this is food for thought. We
Yes.
may not be able to, really get to an answer. But one of my disappointments has been, trying to influence policy,
Yes.
especially on technology, has been an uphill battle. So, we had the introduction of the online harms bill,
Yes.
which died on the order paper. We tried very hard to get all kinds of things in there. But the bros got the better of us,
Yep.
And the bros will get the better of us on AI.
Well,
And the government is already, they have this sprint to, through consultation on the new bill, AI, and we won't get a chance to provide any input. And even if we do, maybe the same thing will happen as what happened to the online harms bill.
yeah.
And so it's really, yes, we can influence policy, we can influence legislation, but when you think about how, Meta and all the big technology firms have basically they've been given a free rein. They still control what they accept online and what they don't.
Yes.
And this community knows very, very well we have no freedom of expression in this country anymore. Because Meta will take our comments down. Try it, and you'll see. If you use the words like genocide in Palestine, gone, erased.
Yeah.
AI will do the same thing. So I guess my question, or the last question for you, advice for us, how do we actually make effective policy interventions, legislative interventions, because we are going to be facing an uphill battle again.
Yeah.
And because we are so discouraged with how we were not heard on online arms legislation, what's going to happen with this?
So I 100% hear you. These parts of the hope I will give us will take this form. I can't remember, I was speaking at Mount Allison University some years ago, and we were talking about the use of social media in resistance movements globally. And it was around the time where there was Tahrir Square and Egypt was going up and so forth. And in the end, after we had our big thing, there was a great image someone sketched. It was a tank, like a military tank. And there was a little blue bird. Now, unfortunately, the blue bird is dead. It's now an X. But, and it was that Twitter came up against, in that time, against a military machine that you would not believe. And it succeeded. And we can still do it. It's harder. Yeah. It's harder, right? But we can still do it. And for all the things we fail at, and we fail to, it mounts up eventually. But I continue to say, please drive this through the regular channels. Still keep pushing. There's some point at which we have to be heard. We have to be heard. I came under real criticism when I was dean at the Mississauga campus for allowing, this is 2021, some Palestinian voices wanted to be heard in 2021. That's what I'm telling you to date.
They've had the same issue.
Same issue was going on that we saw erupt. Those problems were happening for years before, and no legitimate media would cover. Not one. Nowhere in the world. So no one on the West was getting the information. So we had the back then and whatever, and we had to talk. And of course, there were lots of attacks for that. I got lots of attacks. But I still, to this day, I will not take that back. I would do it again. Because if we can't make spaces in universities for these conversations to happen, it's done. Right? And we have to hold space. But I would say keep persisting, keep pushing. If we had 10,000 the first time, we'll have 20,000 the next time. And if it comes, we have to be patient in a time where things are moving fast. But a lot of people are watching and listening now more than they were before. So I think there is hope.
Thank you.
You're welcome.